if you really want to understand the American character, where we've been and where we might go, you need to understand history. You need to understand where we've been, unvarnished, as it really was.
Today is Fox Business anchor Gerri Willis. Thanks so much for joining me.
Natasha, thank you for having me. So good to see you.
So good to see you. It's been a while.
I know. It's been, what,
a few years? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you look great and you sound great, and I'm so glad to see you.
You too. And you came out with a brand new book, which is why you're here, Lincoln's Lady Spymaster, which is just so eye-opening. Talk about a woman of courage who defines the very word, Elizabeth Van Lew. A Southern belle who didn't need to be a spy for the Union during this time, the Civil War. Why did you write this book?
Well, it goes back to the bad old days of COVID and the COVID lockdowns. I happened to notice that some of our young women producers, they were really freaked out about the lockdowns. They were living at home. They were in mom and dad's basement, shoebox apartments in Manhattan. And I thought, you know, this isn't the worst thing that women have faced in this country. So I set about finding a woman who was a real badass, a woman who was brave and strong and courageous to tell her story. And frankly, I'm going to tell you how I failed at this too. I originally wrote a proposal that was about like 20 different women, all of them heroines, and it was completely rejected at every publishing house in New York.
Really?
So, yeah.
They just, why was
Total
that?
fail, big F. They just didn't like the idea. So I sat back and I thought, I can't leave Elizabeth Van Lew alone. I want to know more.
Yeah.
I'm going to write this book. And I sold it myself.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Sticking to your guns.
Right. I believed in it. I mean, I was her biggest promotion agent for sure. And I continue to be that because I believe her story needs to be told. Women need to understand about her story.
Yeah. You know, there's an alarming number of female spies in the Civil War that we haven't heard about. And there's more well-known spies than Elizabeth Van Lew. How did you decide to focus on her?
Well, think about it. So during the Civil War, it's fought right here in our homeland, right? So you could get shot in your kitchen if you were unlucky. The war was right here, not in New York necessarily. Most of it fought in North Carolina and Virginia. So people in those areas, they wanted to help. Even women wanted to help, right? So there were lots of women who wanted to be spies. Belle Boyd was one. She was a 17-year-old Virginian who shot a Union soldier because she didn't like the way he spoke to her mother.
Wow.
And then there was a woman in Washington, D.C. Who seduced Union soldiers, Union generals, congressmen, and gathered information for the Confederacy. And they were both interesting stories, but Elizabeth had something else. She actually influenced the course of the war.
Talk about that.
So she put together a spy ring in Richmond, Virginia, which was her hometown. She lived right under the nose of the Confederacy. That was the heart of the Confederacy, the home of all the generals and all the war machine. And she knew everybody because she was from there. She was also a society lady.
Yeah.
So she was incredibly well connected. So she decided to become a spy. And it took her a while to get there. She was self-taught in many ways, but ultimately the Union itself discovered her and decided to employ her and use her. And it was a great match.
She had a Quaker education.
Quaker education. She had spent a lot of time in Philadelphia. Her mother was from Philadelphia. Her great-grandfather was a former mayor of Philadelphia. And they were abolitionists. Her great-grandfather had been a founding member of one of the abolition societies, and Elizabeth had that point of view. So let me describe her personality a little bit, because she's really an interesting person. So on the one hand, she's a society lady, a Southern belle. She knows how to put people at ease. Her manners are gracious. You know, there was never a ruffled feather in her household. On the other hand, she had a big mouth, she had a point of view, and she was used to people listening to her because she basically, after her father died, ran the household.
Yeah.
So she hates slavery. When her father was living, she argued with him about that because the family owned slaves. And she also thought the Union should stay together. So when the war is starting to get underway, she's shocked by the way the Unionists in town, the people who should have been for the country staying together, were cowed by these Confederates, by these rebels, and wouldn't fight them. And she decides she will.
You've uncovered so much about her, but there's not much of information out there about her. How did that affect your research?
So the most important thing I was able to find, which really influenced the way I thought about her and the way I characterized her, was her diary. And her diary is amazing because you find out that she's scared, that she's worried, that she's nervous.
Vulnerable.
She's vulnerable. You know, Confederate detectives come to her house in September 1863, and they want to search her house. I mean, this is serious stuff. And at the time, on the third floor of her home, a mansion, a fabulous house in Richmond, Virginia, she has hidden 3 Union officers. So at the very time she's being searched, there are men on the third floor who don't even know what's happening and could at any time alert the detectives that they are there. So she personally lived the dangers of this.
Yeah, she was like just engrossed in it. She was in it. And you were too in the research process of all of this.
I got so carried away. That by the time I'm writing the end of the book, and by the way, I wrote that first chapter you mentioned at the very end.
Yeah. The first, I don't want to give it away, but the first chapter, I mean, it starts off with there's a spoiler alert in there. Yeah, I don't want to give it away, but you got to read it. Yeah.
But by that time, I feel like Elizabeth's in the room with me. It's like I can hear the rustle of her silk dress.
Yes.
She became so alive in my imagination that I felt like I knew her.
How did you find the time to write it? Because it is so descriptive. It is so detailed. I felt like I was there with her, seeing her. It's just so colorful in what you've written.
Thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate it. It took a lot of time. I mean, this was all me. Sometimes people use ghostwriters. I did not, mainly because I was so driven by the research and what I was learning. Do you remember the movie National Treasure?
Oh, yes, Nicolas Cage. Love that
movie. I felt like Nick Cage reporting this. You know, Elizabeth was my own Declaration of Independence. Every day I learned something new. Like, did you know that women during the Civil War weren't allowed to wear pants in public? I was shocked. Like, I know you can't vote. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But I can't wear pants on the street? Really?
Why was that?
It was, the roles were very clearly defined at that time. Men wore pants, women did not. And as a matter of fact, so during the war, a lot of women wanted to fight in the war. They wanted to be soldiers. So once they put on pants, everybody just assumed they were men.
Yeah. You talk about that too. It was very easy to put on pants and kind of disappear.
Yes.
Yes,
a lot of women did that. And, you know, it was a different time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there were no gang showers for the soldiers. Doctors were not looking at you. I mean, so you could hide.
Yeah. It is just so fascinating. You know, a lot of your books are, of course, business and finance, and that's what you do. How did you decide to get into the historical nonfiction realm?
I love reading history. I love learning about our nation's history. I'm constantly amazed at the people who have moved history forward. And I was determined to find a woman who would tell that same story. So it's something that's always interested me. And, you know, occasionally business reporting is a little dry. This was not dry. This was exciting.
Yep.
This was life and death in a period of our American history that is very difficult. And we still live with some of the antagonisms that came out of that war.
Yeah. Why do you think America remembers the battlefield generals, but never the female spies who had a hand in ending wars?
Well, I talk about that a lot, right? Because, you know, the bright lights of the Civil War, you know, President Lincoln and Ulysses S. Grant, you know, Robert E. Lee, all of those names are familiar to Americans. But, you know, some of the spies kept their names quiet because they didn't want to be known. Elizabeth is one of those. So uncovering her is something she didn't want to see happen.
She did. She was so good at it, you know.
She was so good at it. But there were also spies who really, you know, Belle Boyd wanted to be known, right? Some of these spies really wanted to have a public persona. But let's face it, these women were not promoting themselves in their lifetime. Their faces were not necessarily everywhere like the presidents and the generals were. So it's up to us now to uncover them and know them and understand their contributions.
Was there a shocking detail about espionage that you learned during the Civil War era?
So I thought what was interesting was the way she was discovered. Think back 1959, there's a man named Ed Feist who had worked at the CIA for decades, was actually a spook during World War II. And he's walking around the National Archives one day, and he comes across a room he's never seen before, and he has a security guard open it up, and he walks in, and there's stacks of paper to the ceiling. What is it? Well, they're all wrapped in red tape, quite literally. He finds out that they are the reports from the Bureau of Military Intelligence. These were the spies for the Union, the spooks for Lincoln. And those documents had not been seen since the end of the war, almost 100 years previous. So history continues to be uncovered all the time. By the way, in those documents, Elizabeth Van Lew appears over and over and over again. So her story was nearly lost and then found again in 1959.
That's incredible. And you went to, obviously you went to Richmond.
Yes.
Where else did your travels take you?
So I spent a lot of time in Richmond, in her neighborhood, Churchill, which is still this beautiful neighborhood, high atop a hill overlooking Richmond. And then in the public places where the state legislature meets, the Confederate White House, I went there, which is an amazing place, kind of spooky. And along the James. Richmond itself is a very historic city above and beyond the Civil War. It was very important in the nation's founding. I also went right here in New York City to the big public library right in Times Square to do research there. They have documents from Elizabeth Van Lew I was able to see, including a cartoon, looks like a cartoon drawn by a kid of a house. There's a house, building and a house, and somebody lighting it on fire, and it says burn, burn, burn. And this was left at her house. It was a warning to her during her lifetime.
Fascinating.
It's crazy.
I mean, it kind of gives you chills. And you're uncovering this in real time. That just has to be so exciting too, to learn so much about this woman.
My poor husband was just, he was like, if you tell me one more Elizabeth Van Lew story, I think I'm going to lose it. But it was exciting because I felt like I was starting to understand for the first time a period that I thought I knew. I'm from the South. I'm from Western North Carolina, not some fancy Washington suburb, but Appalachia. And I thought I knew and understood the South and would see no surprises. That was entirely wrong. Everything about it was new to me.
This shows war in a completely different perspective, a completely different light.
So she's living in Richmond, which is surrounded by the battle. Yeah. But she's not necessarily on the battlefield, right? So it's a different perspective. She is trying to provide as much information as she can, and she has bribed people in the Confederate War Department. She's getting information in real time on where the soldiers are, what condition they are in, the inflation that's raging in Richmond. Prices are through the roof. And all of this information is going to the battlefield desk of Ulysses S. Grant. And he and his generals, fellow generals and officers, are reading it at night over the fire.
It's fascinating. You're not just also focusing on Elizabeth in this, but you also weave in the stories of people like John Wilkes Booth. And what made you decide to do that?
I was fascinated by him. So the man who assassinated President Lincoln lived several blocks from Elizabeth before the war started. He was getting trained at the time as an actor, and he becomes drawn into the Civil War, to the politics of the time. As you know, he's very outspoken, and he loses some jobs, acting jobs, because of it. He is sort of this, very early in the book, kind of a warning to the readers of what's going to happen next.
Yeah. What did you learn about yourself in writing about Elizabeth in this book?
That I have an inordinate capacity for sitting for long periods of time. I learned that, for me, her persistence, her commitment carried her a long way. Now, She was wealthy. She had money to bribe people. She had standing in the community. People knew her and respected her. Those were all positives. But ultimately, what carried her the longest way, the furthest, what allowed her to succeed is the fact that she wasn't going to stand down. There was no way. This was a woman who could have easily pulled up her roots in Richmond and moved to Philadelphia. She had family there. She had the money to do it. But no, she even stayed until her death. So she was committed.
Yeah. Like so many wealthy socialites during that time did that. They went up north.
Yes.
She stayed.
She stayed put and she fought in her own way. And I have great respect for that.
What was the reception like when you published this book?
People, I really thought we got a great reception. We were a New York Times bestseller. I was very proud of that. I didn't expect it. And it's been really well received. I think women in particular get really excited about this because this is a look at a woman who takes it upon herself, assigns herself a job that she did not have to take. And so I think people like seeing this. I say at the end of the book, in an afterword or something, that I think women like learning from other women.
Yeah.
We're always, looking out of the corner of our eye at other women and how they do things. Is that something I want to try? Should I do it that way? And this was an opportunity to see a woman who had defined her own success. Now, the end of her life is somewhat tragic, but ultimately, she's the big winner.
She was a leader, a pioneer, a trailblazer for so many women after that to come.
Yes.
Too.
And hopefully for more, because she was so unknown. I hope this lifts her star and more people hear her story.
How important is it for us to learn and read and know about history?
I don't think there's any substitute. I mean, if you really want to understand the American character, where we've been and where we might go, you need to understand history. You need to understand where we've been, unvarnished, as it really was. And let me tell you, reading history, it's not dry. The stories from especially gifted writers, I'm not including myself in this, are fascinating. They find details, things you may never have suspected that happened. There were plenty of things I found as I was researching my book which would shock and astonish me. And the best writers find those details that bring people along, that are eye-opening, make you learn about our own history.
I think I find you very courageous and brave as well. Talking about your breast cancer journey and everything that you went through with 2016, right? 2016, 2017.
It's 10 years now, and I didn't even really think about that until it came up on my phone 10 years ago.
Time flies.
Time flies, and I feel like a completely different person. I never would have written this book if I hadn't gone through that.
Really?
No, because you know this. I know you know this from your experiences, that having a life-threatening disease makes you face your own mortality, and you realize, hey, if there's something on my to-do list that I'm serious about, you better get on it.
Absolutely. How are you feeling now? I mean, would a book like this have helped you back in 2016 when you were going through your cancer treatment?
I think I would have enjoyed reading it.
Yeah.
For sure. And I did a lot of reading when I was sick, as much as I could. But, I feel great now, and I feel like a new person. And when I'm really, being annoying to my husband, I realize I must be better.
Yeah, you must be. You've got the fight in you. And was writing a book on your to-do list then?
Yes,
that's what you
wanted. Something I was really interested in and couldn't let go of, and it was a thrill getting it done.
It is something when all of a sudden there's that percentage that you can't survive. You realize that we're not here for that long.
No, it's super fast. And as you know, time will slip by and you'll look back and think, what happened to that last year or that last 5 years? So I think it's important to get done what you want to do today to get a start. And I hope that inspires some people out there.
What's next for you? Are we going to turn this into a movie? I think it needs to be a Netflix drama, something. It's got all the elements.
Fingers crossed. You hooked me up, Natasha.
Do you have another book in the can?
Well, it's not in the can, but it's moving slowly to fruition. I'll come back and we'll talk about it.
Is it in the history realm too? Nonfiction?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very exciting. Gerri, thanks for taking the time to come see me and talk about your new book. Where can people buy it?
You can go to Amazon.com, at Barnes & Noble. Any of the big bookstores are carrying it. And if you want me to sign it, go on my website and send me an email with your address, and I'll send you a book plate.
I love that. That's really nice. Gerri, thank you so much. It's great to see you.
Good to see you. Absolute pleasure.
Yes, and thanks everyone for joining us. Until next time.